Hi everybody, last night I went to one of my favorite stores, 511, and among other things I bought this cool baseball hat because it has East German camo pattern. And how cool is that if you're an AK collector? So, I digress. I interviewed the salesperson there to see what kind of EDC knives and blades he carries.
Hey guys, this is Robert from 511 Tactical in Fairfax. I've done search and rescue with Civil Air Patrol. Doing some stuff like that. I've done a lot of security in my lifetime, so I've learned to carry a lot of good products, a lot of good options.
Yeah, so you speak from a place of knowledge.
I do.
Yeah.
A little quick pocket dump for you.
Yeah, this deserves 2 double takes. Respect.
We've got the Dr. Marcaida folding Talon blade. My personal carry, Benchmade Osborne. I don't have any others except for a nice little Husky box cutter.
I bet you open a lot of boxes.
Dr. Marcaida has 2 options, so if you want to go with a folder or a fix. So this you can run through Molly, or if you have, for instance, some of our boots.
Jumping ahead, this new clip that came out this year is the reason why I did not purchase the fixed blade version of the knife. Because I would have to replace it with the Alti clip, which this knife originally came with.
Have it upside down, however you decide to carry it.
For some reason, I'm leaning toward this one because it's similar to Emerson Wave, but it's not obviously a Emerson Wave.
If you're wondering whether this knife made it home with me, it sure did. Here it is. Jumping ahead, I'll say Doug Marcaida did not intend for this knife to be an outdoors type tool. It's not a bushcrafting knife for sure. But regardless, I still took it outside and tested it. Watch till the end to find out the results that may surprise you. I'm going to start with a couple of gripes. First of all, the assembly, while good quality, it was lacking any Loctite on any of the 11 screws. There are 11 screws, 8 on the frame, 2 on the clip, and 1 pivot point. None of them had Loctite. I had to deploy my own, and I'll provide the link to that in the description. And speaking of the descriptions, the translucent nylon scale is a little bit on the thin side, and the designers recognized it, so they did not fully recess the clip on this side. Which is funny because on the metal side, for the lefties, this is a fully recessed pocket clip. But the biggest gripe I have is there should be a training video online. They charge almost $100 for the knife, so at this price level, considering how unconventional in some ways this knife is, there should be a training video on how to pocket deploy this knife. And what this video would help me do is avoid this little nick here and this little nick right here. And I'll explain how that happened when I go over the deployment. I realize that some of you may not even be familiar with the Emerson Wave pocket deployment knives, so I'll make a short chapter here on that topic. If you already know what that is, you can skip to the next chapter. So here's the Emerson Knife Designs concept knife, manufactured under license by a great knife company, Kershaw. How does that work? As you can see right here, this little hook kind of looks like a crest of the wave in a surf. So what this feature does, when you pull it out of the pocket, it catches the edge of the pocket and does this. So Kershaw is not the only company that makes knife with a pocket deploy features. This Crawford 1 by Cold Steel is also designed to do the same thing, but they avoided paying the licensing fees by smoothing out this feature. It works just the same way, and there's enough edge here and thickness to catch on the edge of the pocket. 2 of these knives, both one made in Taiwan right here and one made in China, the price was right, under $40 each. So if it is the pocket deployment feature that you are after, this is not the only option by far, and probably is not the best option as far as practicing and learning how to use the feature. So I've done enough talking for now, and I'm eager to get outside and see if this knife will work. Hey, did you see that? I just did the Doug Marcaida thing, which is not because I'm reviewing this knife. It just became such a part of my knife persona. I do it all the time. And it's a beautiful morning in my hood, and my assistant is enjoying her walk. So before I potentially go ahead and break this blade, I want to show you how you're supposed to deploy it. And the way it was explained to me, you insert your index finger in a situation where you anticipate a quick deployment will be required, and you just chill like this. And when you need to deploy it, you're gonna twist. When you insert the finger, you're gonna twist it perpendicular to your thigh, and then, and I just nicked myself. Take two. What you do is you insert your index finger and you chill if you're anticipating some kind of situation may arise. And then when you need to deploy it, you just literally in a jerk motion pull it out like this and fail. Take three. Very quick motion, pull it away from your body like this. Things to mind is your clothes. It can actually, I caught a few times with my thumb on the clothes. Leaking can occur as it just did again, because if you only partially deploy it and it's in your hand, your brain has not registered that it hasn't fully deployed, and you might end up closing your finger right onto the tip of this blade because of the muscle memory. When practicing with this knife, please do bring your first aid kit or wear a glove. And speaking of, which brings me to gloved hand. Let's see if this knife can even actually function with a gloved hand. And this one is size medium, fits my hand really nice and snug. So let's see how it does. So this worked. The engagement on my index finger is reasonably decent, is actually pretty comfortable to hold. What I like about how this knife deploys, it always ends up in a defensive position here. So whatever you are facing, you can defend against. So you're all familiar by now with my dead oak tree of doom. This is where I test my tips of my blades. And this tree has claimed many a tip, which are probably still stuck in there somewhere. My standard test is 25 strikes, and when I strike, I also work the blade back and forth to extract it. So I'm gonna hold it in a proper grip, and let's see how it will do. Ladies and gentlemen, you might be seeing this tip for the last time. That's 10 strikes. Most of the knives that failed already would have failed by now. The longest the knife went without breaking that was doomed to break was 20 strikes. So let's do 10 more. That's 10 more and 5 more strikes to complete my standardized 25 strike test. That's 25. So at 4 millimeters thick, this D2 blade survived with flying colors. And maybe a little bit of a discoloration on the finish here. But other than that, there's no damage to the knife. There's another dead oak tree here. So what I do here is I insert it into existing crack. Make sure it's in there. Right, and then I twist it 5 times in each direction, so a total of 10 times. And here's an observation I made. Because of the curvature in the handle, you can exert quite a bit of torque on this knife, making it a pretty decent tool for prying. So the idea behind this is to see if I can deform the frames, the frame halves here. And first indication would have been a declination from the center point, which this knife seems to be straight on center. I'm going to do a spine strike That's a good spot for it, to see if I can unlock the frame. Now, when you hold the knife, obviously your gripping hand locks the spring in place, so very little chance that this knife will unlock, but let's do it anyway. All right, so right on the 10th strike, it unlocked. So in this grip, I'm going to do this. Yeah, so holding it properly locks the blade. So a video where somebody was complaining about not being able to do this. I don't see why would you need to do this. This is quite comfortable, actually perfect position for my thumb. So this knife will cut with the tip extremely well. And being D2 and being Taiwanese D2, which usually is very properly heat treated as opposed to Chinese manufactured D2 knives. I digress here. I think Chinese manufacturers, knowing that our consumers here in the United States are very much impressed by the Rockwell hardness numbers, they over-harden D2. And therefore, it becomes a lot less durable and a lot less tough. It's getting hot, and so we're taking a little bit of a hydration break. It's good to be a dog. So this blade, as I said, is very thick, and the blade geometry is not ideal for slicing because it tapers pretty rapidly. Almost a Scandinavian grind over here, ladies and gentlemen. That said, there's no reason not to test its ability to carve wood. And this is white oak, slightly humid from the rain. And as you can see, those reviewers who bashed the sliciness or utility of this knife were dead wrong. First of all, this grip is ideal for me. I'm not even inserting pinky. Let's see. Yeah, it's ideal. Look how it's eating through oak. I would definitely say that it's a decent backup to your outdoor setup. Nothing wrong with this knife. And just to remind you, I have not resharpened this edge. It's a factory edge. In fact, I am thinking what will happen is this will be a convex grind eventually. As I was about to wrap up, I just spotted this shoe, random shoe laying around. Nike, some kind of Air. All right, so that gives me an opportunity to test the defensive capability of this knife. So let's see that. Okay. Trying to do it safely with one hand, which is an oxymoron. Let's do it through this side. All right, that's better. So let's try this. It's a 2-inch blade, or 2-inch sharpened edge. 2.2 inch blade. And you're all familiar with what Nike shoes are like. Yeah, I'm just trying to cut the chunk out. Out of the shoe, not out of my hand. So this is what it does for a very short blade.
try it this way. Yeah, it goes through just no problem. All right, home, wash my hands, call it a day.
So I'll compare it to Gerber Principle, which has a Scandinavian grind from the factory. I rounded it off at the edge because the edge wasn't holding, so I put a little bit of a convexity on the edge. But geometry is very similar if you look closely on the straightaway. The width of the primary bevel is basically the same. This one may be a hair 2 millimeters wider. So I'll use that as a comparison, see how that slices. Yeah. So, and this is after cutting the oak branch. So it still cuts, but it catches their nicks. And obviously this is a factory edge, so I didn't expect much better. But what this intended to do is this, you know. So it still does it quite well, but so does this knife. So to the grinder I go, and let's see what it does.
All right. I got what I call Scandi-Vex Edge on it. Combination of Scandinavian and convex. So it's still a little thick for being a great cutter, but let's give it a shot. This is from the coupon book. Let's see. Because it's so short and thick, it's hard to push cut. I have to drag it a little bit. Ah, don't fall down. Ah, come on.
So what did I learn about Marcaida Talon folder in the first 24 hours that I owned it? This knife can stab, pry, strike, carve, pierce, and cut. In the end, you have to decide, is it a novelty item or your last line of defense, a shelf-dwelling collectible, or a trusty EDC companion? To me, it's a fun addition to the stable. Thank you, Master Marcaida.